another one of my supercharged Power Pack gardening specials, year-round rose care. You know, roses are the most popular of all of the garden flowers. And they're grown in all parts of the country and can be used for dozens of decorative purposes, and you don't have to spend a fortune. Somewhere there's the perfect rose for you. And the search can be a whale of a lot of fun. Now, there are many varieties of roses available for use in borders, lawns, even as specimens. And there's for the tiniest bit of space you got, there's the mini fairy princess of rosedom. Now, these grand ladies belong in your garden. In this special, we'll look at rose care up close and personal, step by step, throughout the year, discussing soil preparation, site selection, feeding, cleaning, and putting your roses to bed for winter. There's lots of ground to cover, and I don't want to waste any of your time, so let's get growing. There are several ways to buy a rose. The first and least expensive way is bare root. It means it comes just like this, no soil on it. It'll come in a package that has sawdust in it that's wrapped around this, and then a decorative container around that. These are the least expensive, and they're generally not the latest varieties. There are patented roses, but they're the ones that are a little farther back. The very popular ones, the old popular ones, are in bare root. So if you're like me and you like the popular ones, then you'll want to buy these. Make sure that when you purchase a bare root rose, that number one, that the green stalks are green, they're not waxed, not real heavy, and any old or woody black rotted wood, I don't want any more of the dieback than there is. This is a healthy one. I would cut that out. I would cut this one out. Any of that's dieback, in order to make sure that it survives. Then you always want to soak bare root. When you get them home, soak them in a bucket of nice warm water. Potted roses. Potted roses are merely bare root roses of the latest variety purchased by the nurseryman, planted into the mix that we talk about so many times and grown on. These are wonderful. These are ready to go in the ground, generally this size, and they go from 1 gallon up to 10 gallons. You can have a full-blown one. Here again, what I'm looking for is good, healthy foliage, no black spots on, lots and lots of buds, but not a lot of open flowers, because once the flower opens and blasts, that's what we call it, then you have to cut back to just above a 5-leaf cluster in order to get another flowering spur to come out. Then you've got to wait maybe 2 weeks, 10 days, maybe even 3 weeks in order to have. Again, making sure that it's strong. There aren't a lot of broken limbs on it. What you don't want to do is buy plants that someone has just gone along and cut all the tops off, or that there are long canes coming out with no foliage at all, and that they're black spots. You don't want to buy anything bringing it home with black spots on it or any fungus diseases, because you're going to bring it home to your plants. There's pre-packaged. Those are the ones that come to you with they look just like this, and they're cut back in wood. They're in a box, planted in the soil. They'll usually come from the mail order houses. They're good roses. They're easy to plant. The instructions are there. It just means that you don't have to dig a hole and make a cone. Just remember to make sure that the plant that you purchase is healthy, because a healthy rose is a happy rose, which makes you very happy when it blooms for you. We're going to practice the real estate formula for rose growing. Location, 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 and that's what your roses need. The proper location with good growing conditions. First of all, you want to make sure that your soil is well drained. Well drained means that the water will run through. It will hold some moisture, but it won't hold enough to drown them. And so you want to make sure that you have good drainage. And roses will grow just about any place in the country if you have the proper location. You want to make sure that you got water close by, because they have to be watered in the morning and on hot days to the soil. You want to make sure that water is close by. You need a half a day of full sun, and that will be afternoon as opposed to morning, because the morning is too light. They really, really need it lightly. Hedges. Hedges are the greatest barrier, wind barrier, against the north and the west wind. So are good fences or something. If you're using hedges, you have to make sure that before the season begins, that you root prune the roots of your hedges all the way along, so that your roses aren't competing with the roots of the hedges. Because if they do, the hedges are going to win, your roses are going to lose. You have to give your roses plenty of room to grow. Don't cramp them up. Give them room. They're an individual plant. They're a show plant. They're a lady. They don't like people messing around with them. If you take time to prepare the beds that your roses are going in, you will have the queen of the garden in your garden. But without that help, you're not going to have anything. So remember, it's location, location, location. We talked about location, location, location. Now we got to talk about soil conditions. You have to prepare the soil properly for your roses if you want them to grow. You can't just dig a hole any old place, plop them in the hole, push the dirt back in around them, expect them to grow, because they're not going to do that. But that happens to be what the majority of people who go out and buy a rose do. I want you to stop doing that. Number one, roses need a hole between 18 and 20 inches in diameter. 18 inches deep. If you're planting a bed, then I want the bed 4 feet wide, and then the holes within them 18 to 20 inches wide and 18 inches deep. And you say, wait a minute, my soil is too heavy, I can't do that. Okay, then you can go with a raised garden, and that's just 2x10s. You nail them together, you place them in the area where you want them. Remember, it has to be a sunny spot. Now you've only got to dig your hole 8 inches deep. No matter whether it's 8 inches deep, and then the balance of it is 10, so you got your 18, or just an 18-inch hole, what you have to do is improve the drainage, because roses do not like to sit with their feet in water. They'll drown. They can't swim, can't breathe, and you won't hear them call for help till all the leaves come off and they're dead. Make darn sure that the water drains well. If you have to improve the drainage, then at the bottom of the 18 inches, dig another 6 inches and put a layer of good large stones or pebbles, and then begin to build up the soil. And into the soil that's going to be built up, you're going to put either dry or well-rotted manure into the soil. Mix it really, really well. Not only manure, but they also like things like hair. Hair, a slow-release nitrogen protein. Take a banana peel and work that into the soil. Put almost anything that you could possibly think of that would enrich the soil. I do not like dry fertilizer mixed in. I will take a poultry manure that's dry, or I'll take a sludge, mix that in. Now, roses like to live in soil that's slightly on the acid side, between 5.5 and 6.5. So why not take a soil test? Soil tests don't cost a lot of money. You can buy a soil test kit in any garden center, and you can do it yourself and then take it off after that. Now, let's say that you had to increase the acidity. Then you will use sulfur. If you have to decrease it, then you will add lime. The roses like anything you put into the soil. Peat moss, topsoil sterilized, professional mix. Any of these things enrich and enhance the soil, and they enhance the opportunity, and they ensure that your roses are going to grow in your yard and be beautiful, and you'll be proud of them, and they'll be awful proud of you. You've selected your rose, you've picked the spot, you've dug the hole, and now the most important thing that you're going to do for your rose is plant it, because it's its permanent living space. You want to make sure that you got the right spot and that you do it right. You begin by mixing 75% bone meal. Bone meal is a slow-release nitrogen with 25% Epsom salts, which deepens the color, thickens the petal, and increases root structure. You will also add a half a teaspoon of sugar for each rose bush. Put a handful a very light handful. Just sprinkle it around the sides and the bottom. It's slow release, it won't hurt anything. And now you're prepared to get down to planting your plant. Now you will take the mixture of 75% topsoil, 25% peat moss, put a thin layer in the bottom, over the top of the stones, or even in the bottom if you don't have stones. And now you're ready to put the plant into its home. If you have a container grown plant, then be very careful and make sure that when you put it in as gently as you can and hold it in position. And now pour some of the mixture of peat moss and potting soil around it, packing it down firmly, holding it so that it's straight. You want to make sure that it's straight, it's in the direction that you want it. Now, push some of the existing soil that you have around it to support it as well, because that's what's going to have to live and get everything out of. Now, turn your water on and let the water gently run, and to pack down the water. And while you're waiting for that to go down, if you live in an area where the soil is really heavy, make sure that you put a handful of gypsum in the bottom, pelletized gypsum. And what it does is it changes the molecular structure of the soil, changes the particle sizes of the soil. Let that run all the way down, then add the rest of the mixture around the plant. Packing it down as you go. Make sure you pack it down. Bring your soil in. And I want you to do a mound and a water retention trough around it. Once this is done, now you can go ahead and mix the tonic that it's going to need to get off and really get going and growing. And let me tell you, with this tonic, it really will. You're going to start with a half a gallon of weak tea water. And there I use a tablespoon of instant tea. I add to that a tablespoon of hydrogen peroxide, a tablespoon of liquid dish soap to soften the soil. Hydrogen peroxide destroys any of the bacteria killer chlorine that was around in water. Then I'm going to use a teaspoon of B1. All vitamin B1 is a plant food with a vitamin B1 niacin tablet in it. That's all, and that jumps up. A dentist in New Jersey in 1936 discovered that. A teaspoon of whiskey. The enzymes in whiskey are greater and richer than those in beer. It has nothing to do with the alcohol. Stir that up real good and give each rose bush a cup of this solution, and I'll guarantee you these things will get up and begin to grow and perk and smile and be happier than all get out, and so will you. Well, I hope you ladies are as happy as I am to see, and you're all alive and raring to grow. Well, it's time to get growing. Now your roses are uncovered, you've got them pruned back. Now it's time to give them their first bath of the season. And they need it. You need a shower when you wake up to be refreshed and ready to go. They need it to be ready to grow. Now, when we make our spray, the spray I'm going to show you is a basic spray. What you're going to do is anytime you have to use a medication, that's an insecticide, pesticide, miticide, or fungicide, you're going to add it to the spray. And the solution I use is a fruit tree spray at 25% of the recommended rate, only if I need to and only on the plants that need the solution. The basic solution is 1 cup of antiseptic mouthwash. Antiseptic mouthwash is bacteriostats. It screws up the sex life of diseases so they don't even get a chance to get going. And we'll do that again every 2 weeks. 1 cup. 1 cup of liquid dish soap. The soap washes off the pollution from all winter because they're dirty, just like when you take your shower, it's to wash off the number 1. If you're doing it in the afternoon, it's the afternoon. The morning, you want to be refreshed. 1 cup of chewing tobacco juice. Chewing tobacco juice is nicotine. It's a contact poison. It's an ingestion poison. It discourages the insects from coming around, because it's both a contact poison and ingestion poison. The way you make chewing tobacco juice is take your thumb and 3 fingers, get a big clutch of chewing tobacco. The reason we use chewing tobacco is because it has molasses. That's my sugar source. That is then tied into the toe of a nylon stocking, put down into a pint of boiling hot water. If you're into gardening and you have a lot of roses like I do, then you're going to put the whole package into a nylon stocking, marinate it in a gallon of water, and then you're ready to spray. You're going to fill the balance of the sprayer with water, attach it to the hose end sprayer, and then you're going to wash down all of the rose ladies, including everything else in the garden too, every 2 weeks after 7 o'clock at night for the rest of the growing season, to ensure that they're fresh and clean and ready to grow, and that nothing disturbs them or bothers them, so that they can be the royal lady they are, the queen of your garden. It's wake-up time for your roses. They want a breakfast. They just woke up. They're hungry, and a bear coming out of hibernation, and they want breakfast, and they want it now. No, they don't want ham and eggs. They want bananas, though. That's part of it. And I'm going to show you how to mix up their breakfast of rose champions. You're going to take 5 pounds of fertilizer, a balanced fertilizer. Doesn't matter what kind it is, as long as it's balanced. That's the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash. That's all the trace elements and minor elements. That's their 1 a day. Melanie, this one's going to last them from now all the way through until fall. Then you're going to use 1 pound of Epsom salts. Epsom salts is a rose's best friend. Any rosarian will tell you. 1 cup of Epsom salts mixed with fertilizer. Now the Epsom salts deepens the color, thickens the petal, and increases root structure. That's what we need for the entire growing year. We need plenty of energy. 1 cup of sugar. Sugar, again, sugar feeds the bacteria in the soil, which breaks down this crunchy, munchy food for them so that they can take it up, because they don't have teeth. Well, they got thorns, they just don't have teeth. And 2 cups of bone meal. Bone meal is a slow-release fertilizer that's going to last over the entire season. And then what we need is potassium in the form of bananas. Never throw out banana peels if you're a rosarian. You can dry them out in the sun, or you can put them in the microwave, or you can put them in the oven and dry them out real good. And then I put them on the driveway and I rub them with a rock and make them into fine powder. And then each one of the roses will get their supply. But right now I'm going to make it real powdery and dry, mix it into this whole solution. And then I'm going to feed each of the roses a liberal handful right now to get them off and going. Then I go to the all-purpose Green Up tonic from then on. But right now, it's the breakfast of rose champions, so they get up and they're roaring to grow for the rest of the season. It's summertime and we're concerned with keeping cool and comfortable. Your roses are concerned with keeping cool and comfortable, because if they don't stay cool and comfortable, if they get dry and warm, you're going to lose the foliage, you're going to lose the flowers. Now, one of the ways that can happen is if you improperly cultivate, and cultivating is something that you want to be very careful underneath roses. These are the tools that we use in vegetable gardens where things go deep, and I'm side dressing yourself, call it side cultivating. Don't use tools like this around your roses, because the roots are just very shallow underneath the soil. If you're going to use anything, you'd use something like this winged weeder, or you would use this hand tiller in order to kill weeds. Pull your weeds, get them all cleaned up, put your preening green down, or your preen, then put your mulch over it, shredded bark. That's what you want. And you want it 2 to 3 inches deep. And when it decomposes, it feeds the roses as it decomposes, because it gives off natural food. Now, along with putting mulch down in order to keep the moisture in the soil, keep the temperature consistent, and then not letting the water evaporate too fast, it's also a place where you can put repellents in there for insects and varmints that come around, especially mice and voles and things like that. If you take paradichlorobenzene moth crystals, mix those into your mulch, that will discourage many of the borer insects from coming around. Also, if you add the skin of 2 oranges, shred it real fine, mix it with this size can of paradichlorobenzene, mix it on soil and put it through your rose garden, the cats won't come in there. Want to keep snakes out, it's 2 skins of lemons mixed with this size can of paradichlorobenzene, keep them out. You can sprinkle cayenne pepper onto the soil, and that will keep cats and dogs and other varmints and for any furry varmint around. You can use garlic. Garlic is an excellent spray. You can buy it commercially or you can make it yourself. Onion juice, any one of a number of things will keep your roses comfortable and cool. Mulch, put a guard down, and they'll smile and be just as cool as can be, and then you'll be cool too because you won't be upset when you come out and find them just happier and all get out. On a hot summer day, there's nothing tastes better than a cool drink of water. For you, well, that's the same way with your roses. And on top of that, plants are like people, and we both need water to survive. And on hot days, we need more than on cool days. But the one thing with roses are that you don't want to be out there turning the sprinkler on, just let it go over the top of it, because that's when you get black spot and all of the other diseases that come. There are a couple of ways you can water your roses. The best way, if you've got a rose bed or several roses, is using these soaker hoses. And the water comes out through the side of it. It doesn't sprinkle all over. You put it under the mulch. I like to go 3 to 4 inches down into the soil. The other way is when you want to spot water, is spot water with a wand where you can literally control the water, get down deep. Roses like to have moisture down as far as 8 to 10 inches. I like that amount of moisture, and I like them watered in the morning time, not at night. You can also attach to the wand, you can now attach these feeder units that the fertilizer's in so you can feed and water at the same time. And again, when you water, what happens is if you get up high, then you've really got a problem because now this foliage will get really wet. But you can go inside and drop the water down to where it really gets down. Now the rose has enough water that when it sweats, it perspires. There's more than enough to adequately suffice to keep it comfortable and not cause other problems. But if you don't keep them cool, keep them watered well with the right piece of equipment at the right time, you're going to have a whale of a problem. Don't. Watering is not a science, it's an art. So practice your art. Always paint the most beautiful rose picture you can think of by watering it the right way at the right time. It's summertime, and it's time for nice, light meals for you and I. It's also time for a nice, light, even, balanced, comfortable, good-tasting meal for your roses. And they work so hard producing so many flowers that they need something extra special. So I alternate the food that I give them. Now, in the spring of the year, we gave them their fertilizer, the bone meal, the Epsom salts, all of the heavy stuff they needed to really get off and really get going, and especially that Epsom salts really helps us go. Now we're going to start, and every 3 weeks we're going to feed them the all-purpose tonic. And the all-purpose tonic consists of 1 can of beer. Beer is an enzyme activator that triggers all of the other materials and elements to work. And so it's 1 can of beer. I call it the enzyme activator. The only thing better than that is spit. 1 cup of household ammonia. Ammonia is a nitrogen source. Nitrogen is what causes the green. It's very fast. It's sort of like lemonade to the plants. 1/2 cup of liquid dish soap. The dish soap washes off the pollution, so black spot and all of the other funguses that come to the plant, to the roses, especially their foliage, doesn't come in. 1/2 cup of ordinary lawn food so that they get their vitamins. Again, they're being fed every 3 weeks, and they're getting fed before 10 o'clock in the morning. They get 1/2 cup of clear corn syrup. Corn syrup is the sugar. The sugar is what they need in order to feed the bacteria so that the food breaks down so that they can eat their food. That is then poured into the hose end sprayer, and that will be fed to them every 3 weeks. Now, every 2 weeks, what I'm going to do is alternate. And here, I'm going to use 2 tablespoons of liquid fish emulsion, also known as liquid fish fertilizer. 2 tablespoons. I'm going to use 2 tablespoons of instant tea. Instant tea is tannic acid, and instant tea is something that all plants like. The tannic acid helps them digest their food better. 1 teaspoon of baking powder. 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Baking powder is a leavening, and a leavening helps them, again, stabilize the food. 1 teaspoon of liquid iron. Now, iron is when the leaves are yellow on the inside and the veins are dark. That's a lack of iron. 1 teaspoon of iron. You literally could give it more, but it would just waste it. And last but not least, 1 teaspoon of dry red wine. Now, dry red wine, the vintners of old used to put wine, the wine findings back into the garden, and the reason that they did that is because it fed the bacteria underneath, and they really loved that. This is then applied at 1 quart for each rose bush once every 2 weeks. If you go back and forth between this combination of fertilizers and sprays, your plants will love you, and you'll love your plants because they'll be the most beautiful roses that you ever saw in the neighborhood. And that's all you can ask. Ask not what your roses can do for you, but what you can do for your roses, and that's to give them a good, balanced meal. Pruning is no mystery. As a matter of fact, I call it an art form because you're shaping the plant for something, for someone to admire, you or your friends or your neighbors or your family, but it's an art form. It isn't something you just go in and you cut everything down level at 6 inches above the ground, no. And pruning is done for a reason. It's to remove old dead wood. If there's any dead wood within a plant, any time of the year, and there are 2 times to prune, by the way, there's in the spring of the year and in the fall of the year, and then anytime during the season, if there's something wrong, you always go in and prune and take any broken limbs or any dead or decayed limbs out. But for the most part, it's to remove dead wood and shape it back. Now, one of the things you want to do is to stimulate new growth, and that's why we cut back wood in order to make it break open. And most important in the summertime is to let light in. Now, the best time to prune in the north is in March. In the Sun Belt, it's January and February, and you do it always after the last killing frost in the north. Now, once we go in to do our pruning and trimming, we always want to cut above the lowest outside break. And here is an outside eye. So I'm pruning this on the south and west side. And the reason I say that is because you will always prune limbs on the south and west side of your plants 4 inches shorter than those on the north and east side of your plant. Because the ones on the north and the north and east don't get as much light. Again, we're coming back because we're going to shape this one, and I'm coming back right here. And after I do any cutting or trimming, I always seal all of the wounds, so don't forget that. Here again, I'm coming around now, and I'm still going to go low here. Now, I will come up at least 4 inches higher, and here I'm just going to make that fresh cut and I'll seal it. Here now, I've got something. I got the center of the bush. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go in and pull off that foliage and all the way down the center because I want the center to be clean. I'm again going to cut up in here. I'm going to an outside break here. I'm higher than there. Here I'll go to, I'm going to take this outside break and I'm going to cut this one a little bit smaller. If I have any place on the bush, I have anything that's crossing over and rubbing each other. For instance, right here, I'm real low. I want low break because I want my foliage to come out low. I've got 2 of them down in here that were crossing each other. I'm going to sacrifice this foliage for right now because I like the position of this other limb and there's dead wood inside. Now I'm going to take and make a mixture of liquid 7, about a teaspoon, in a in an 8-ounce can of interior latex paint, and I'm going to go over and I'm going to dab each one of my cuts. First of all, because I think it looks a heck of a lot nicer. That's number one. And number two, because I don't want to encourage insects and diseases from going in there. And so by doing that and protecting my bush all the way along, it will be fine. And again, remember, you're doing it with a purpose in mind, not just for the heck of going out and pruning. If you will keep your roses in perfect shape, remember that word, keeping in shape. Humans have to keep in shape, plants have to keep in shape, especially the queen. You'll have the most beautiful roses that you've ever seen. Summer insect and disease control are immensely important, because if you don't take care of them, of your roses, you're going to lose them. Black spot, rust, cankers are the most serious problems that you have with roses. So if you use the all-season cleanup tonic every 2 weeks like you're supposed to, and saturate the soil underneath, wash them off real good, there's probably no reason for you to use the heavy-duty artillery that you have to. But if you really have the problems, then bring it out. And that's in the form of rose and flower dust. Rose and flower dust is available any garden center. It's in a container that you can already use if you want to. But when you punch the holes, if you're going to use this container by itself, don't make the full-size holes. Make them smaller, so that when you dust over the top of them, you dust, and by the way, you have to dust very high. You're going to get a dust, not mat, all over the leaves, because if you do, then you're not helping anything, you're hurting everything. When you have to bring it out, you're going to use the rose dust in a duster. Dusters are available in every garden center. Make sure it's on a day when there is no wind. You're doing it in the evening without spectators, no children, not the wife, not anybody. I don't want anybody around. And then check the wind. Always throw something up to see what direction the wind's in, and you go upwind and dust downwind, making sure you get in underneath, over the top. So now if you keep them washed with the every 2-week spray and only bring out the dust when it's absolutely necessary, you won't have a problem. The most important job that you have to do in a rose garden this fall is take care of them so that they're ready to come back next year. There is no reason why you have to replace roses every year. They should grow for years and years and years. And the first thing you have to do is control the insects in the soil. And that's done by using 1 cup of liquid dish soap and diazina soil insect control at the recommended rate inside, using your 20-gallon hose end sprayer. In areas where you got a lot of snow, a lot of bad weather, a lot of freezing and everything, use rose cones over the top of the plant. And when you bring them together, I want you to bring the canes together with pantyhose and just snug them up a little bit so that you can get them inside. Cut them back only so they go inside of the cane. And then I want you to seal the cuts with any interior latex paint with a little bit of liquid 7 inside of it to seal them off. Then sprinkle paradichlorobenzene moth crystals as a repellent for varmints that would nest or chew on the bark. After you have pruned them and cut them back, then I want you to spray with ammonia and shampoo. And the way to do that is 2 tablespoons of household ammonia, 2 tablespoons of liquid dish soap, and then go ahead and spray them down. Never feed with regular fertilizer after August the 15th, because you'll stimulate new growth that's going to be wiped out by Jack Frost. Mix together 5 pounds of bone meal, 1 pound of Epsom salts. Give each of your roses a half a handful of this mixture. And last but not least is to give them their final bath so they go to bed comfortable and don't have to worry about insects for the rest of the fall. And for next spring. And there you're going to use a cup of liquid dish soap, a cup of antiseptic mouthwash, a cup of chewing tobacco juice. Apply it from your 20-gallon hose end sprayer. I'll guarantee you that your roses will not be bugged for winter or come next spring. In areas where the temperature goes below freezing, you have to wrap up your roses. You can't just leave them hanging out there and expect next winter after the snow goes away and you get out that you're going to have any roses left. You've got to wrap them up. And wrapping them up means to mulch them so that they go to sleep and stay asleep. For some reason, some folks have the idea that when we mulch roses, what we're trying to do is keep them warm. No, we want them to go dormant, to freeze and stay frozen so that they're not woke up and all the energy comes out of. The first thing, you can use cardboard boxes, you can use white rose cones. It's got to be white in order to reflect. It is not plastic and has to be vented. Second of all, I want you to cut your roses back so they comfortably will fit into a rose collar. And that simply means to come down and make the cuts so that it will go into the rose collar and that I have room to cut back come spring with new growth. Once you do that, then we're going to take and we're going to tie the rose, we're going to bring the rose together with a piece of nylon stocking. And because nylon stocking is strong, it expands itself. I just simply tie them up and bring them together tight enough so that they won't rattle around and will stay inside. That done, then we're going to take and use soil. And the soil has to come from away from the garden. It can't be from underneath it. It has to be new soil from around the garden. And I'm going to put it around and heap it up as high as I can here. And pack it down. And now I'm going to take a pest strip, an ordinary insect pest strip, and I'm going to hang it inside onto one of the canes. We'll just put it around here. And what it does is it puts an insect control inside of here so that when I pour the leaves over the top of it, and that's I want to put the leaves over, I want to make sure that they get inside, all around the rose, on the top of the crown, right? Get it right up inside. Then I'm going to take my rose cane, I'm going to put it over the top like this. I'm going to put a brick on top to anchor it down and hold it in place so it's down. Then I'm going to take and punch a hole in the east, about 3 inches down, in the east side and in the north side, in order to let ventilation go through that it is from the top. But I must pull it together so that it goes inside. Use the soil to heal up over the graft. Put the leaves on so that once it goes to sleep, it stays to sleep. Put the cone over the top, the pest strip inside for pest control to kill any insects that are nursing around in there. And then I'm ready to walk away and know that I have safely taken care of my roses for the winter. So there you have it, folks, a step-by-step guide on how to have the biggest, bloomiest, brightest roses on the block, and there's no mystery or magic to growing these lovely ladies. Just the basic know-how of preparing and feeding and maintenance, along with a dose of common sense thrown in. And now that you're armed with this knowledge, there's no excuse for not trying one or more of these grand dames in your own backyard. Go on, you won't regret it. As for me, all of my hard work is done. Now it's time for me to stop and smell the roses. Until next time, I'm Jerry Baker, America's Master Gardener, wishing you good gardening and good luck.